Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The question of the day is, are we becoming a renter nation? But first, you're at home with the Willises. So before we get started, I want to remind you to make sure you subscribe, hit the button down there below, hit the bell as well, and so that you are notified every time we upload new content. Now, this has been a little touchy subject for quite some time now in the real estate world. And it's really asking that question of, are we becoming more of a renter's nation? Or, I mean, you can look at states and cities and all the things. We're gonna look at this from a national standpoint, and then I've got some numbers for the state of Nevada. It's quite interesting.
It's turned into quite the stats.
I mean, I do it for the people. Okay, so one of the quotes that I do have, now this is for Nevada, so let me bring up my papers because y'all know I have to have my notes. All right, okay. So for 2021, as far as the percentage of investor home sales, 30% of investor home sales. Okay, that means that was 23,995 home sales were investor home sales.
And that's here.
Yeah, that's for the state of Nevada. What was the increase from 2020? It was 110% increase. From 2020, it doubled.
Now
it overly doubled.
We want to note that in some states and some cities, that's even higher.
It is.
Because investors buy in areas that are they target certain areas like Nevada, Arizona, Silicon Valley, Atlanta, different areas where they see job growth, they see no taxes, they have a specific reason why they're doing it in those areas. So in different states, in different cities, those numbers are even higher than here.
Yeah. So, okay, I've got this other quote. So this was written by Tim Henderson back in July 2022. He said, in North Las Vegas, Nevada, which is mostly Hispanic and Black, this is from his quote, not us saying this. But he said residents have gathered petitions for a ballot initiative limiting rent increases, saying that they've been outbid by investors who have raised rent sharply in recent years. The controls were supported by the then Governor Sisolak, who blamed out-of-state speculators coming in, buying up homes in our neighborhoods and raising the rent. So this is very interesting. Again, that was written by Tim Henderson. It was a whole article that he wrote, and these were just different pieces that I picked out for the state of Nevada. But let's talk about it, because large corporations are buying homes.
They are.
Droves.
So what we have to realize is this isn't something that's been going on for 30 years. Asset management companies are what we call hedge funds, or now what we just call the corporations, recently came into the home buying market.
Yeah.
The reason why they did that is when you had the .com crash and you had the real estate economy crash, real estate in times of turmoil, or if you're in a bear or a bull market, is more stable than the stock market. So these asset management companies said, not only can I park investors' money in real estate, but that real estate goes up in value, and they can use the rents as a higher rate of return than Apple, Google, different stocks. And so they found a way to have another product to offer to investors. And that's what hedge funds do. They manage funds for other people. It's a big pool of funds, and they are in charge of bringing the greatest return out of those funds, and they found that real estate is a great place to do that. So the negative part of it is, you know, if you're looking to buy a home and you have a proof of funds saying you're pre-approved for $350,000, and then you have this mega corporation that sends a proof of funds saying they have $3 million, a lot of times people opt to go with the corporation because they have the cash reserves, they can offer more, and it kind of provides, and to a certain extent, an unfair advantage when negotiating on a house.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. I think one of the biggest misnomers about these hedge funds and these corporations that allowed them to kind of sneak under the radar is that nobody looked at them in buying residential real estate.
Mm-hmm.
People always think of these corporations as, you know, when you see the large malls, you know, the large high rises or things like that. But what people don't know is that these same corporations have been buying single family homes for quite some time. And the guy that wrote this article, Tim Henderson, dated it as far back as 2012.
Yeah.
When the market crashed. So they've been, you know, buying, and they've also been buying these single family homes in what are they called? Like not envelope or portfolio. Envelope, portfolio, fold, or something. Anyway, these portfolio purchases where, you know, they see a neighborhood, they see 10 of the same house or similar houses, and then they're able to buy all 10 of them at the same time and rent them out. So they're getting the rental income, then it appreciates, and then they can take that money back out, and then they can buy some more. So essentially, they're doing on a massively large scale what those of us, the smaller investors like us, are doing on a smaller scale. But I think, again, the misnomer was that these corporations were doing commercial investing. No, ma'am, no, sir. They're purchasing single family residences. And as a matter of fact, they're now building for rent. So you've got these companies now that are moving into these subdivisions, and where there are different builders, you'll also see, it definitely is happening here in Las Vegas, homes that are being built specifically to be rented.
Yeah, and they kind of sell the convenience. So it's like if you can get a brand new home, you still live in the home, you just rent versus owning it. And so they make it kind of enticing. So you have your American Homes for Rent, and then you have these big companies like Blackstone and BlackRock that actually have subsidiary companies that, like a Vinebrook Homes, where they just, all they do is manage properties for hedge funds and these asset management companies. So it's a lot of corporation-owned properties that take up some of the available inventory for people to buy. So you have basically places like Blackstone, BlackRock, they basically have a blank check almost to go and buy assets for these companies. And so the question when we talk about are we turning into a renter nation is because it's a different landscape now. You know, before they actually were looked at as kind of the savior when the market crashed, because we had so many houses on the market, and they were buying, you know, portfolios and chunks of houses, and it was good because you had people living in there, whether they're renting or buying them. But when you have a tight market and they snatch up a lot of inventory, it creates more of a tighter situation. So that's changing. The second thing that we want to talk about is, especially here, you see a lot of development of big apartment complexes. I mean, we have Orca apartment complexes here, and they're still building, like brand new. So that lets you know the demand for housing is still high. But instead of using that land for condos or townhouses or houses, they're opting to go the multifamily way and do developments where it's, you know, 30 units for people to rent. So there's still a lot of development of big multi-unit apartment complexes, which is more on the renter side versus the purchasing side.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about this in terms of student loan debt. Now, I know you're kind of like, how are we marrying the two, Nick? But when it comes to a lot of, especially who's coming out now, Gen Zers, and many millennials too, coming out with all this student loan debt. Now, student loan debt affects your debt to income ratio. Now, the government did make some changes recently, over a year and a half ago, decreasing how they calculate that debt to income ratio, or specifically that student loan debt, from 1% to 0.5%, and that is significant. But when you're coming out, they cut it in half essentially, as far as what it would look like to, if you have, $50,000, they take 1% of that. They used to take 1% of that and basically say this is how much you would owe per month. Now it's 0.5%, which is significant, very significant. However, because student loan debt is on the rise, that messes up your debt to income ratio, thus making buyers less eligible, or also make it take a little bit longer for them to become eligible to purchase a home. So what happens when they graduate college and want to purchase a house? They can't. And so what do? They rent.
Mm-hmm.
So we see it becoming a bigger issue as students are accumulating student loan debt and not finding ways to get out of it. I mean, the government, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but students are coming out with $100,000, $200,000 loans, student loans, with no real way of paying them off. Well, that messes up your debt to income ratio, and then it makes it harder for you to purchase a home. So
yeah, so the point we're trying to make is, go to the homeownership seminars.
Yeah.
Listen to this podcast. Watch this podcast, because yes, you're still able to buy a house. But if you look at 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a different landscape.
Yeah.
The real estate market was a different landscape, because you didn't have competition like the hedge funds buying real estate. And then on the ability for you to get them in is, you didn't have the whole student loan issue because they changed the underwriting criteria.
Yeah.
So are we turning into a renter nation? But if you look at the home ownership rates, they're actually going down because you have competition on the available inventory to buy, and it's a little bit harder for you to buy because of student loans if you have them. Not everybody has student loans.
Very true.
And it's not an issue for everybody as far as debt to income ratios, but for the most part, they're making it more convenient for you to rent versus to buy. And if we wouldn't be sitting here on this podcast, it's for the most part long-term advantageous for you to buy versus to rent.
Yeah, indeed. What we tell everybody, if you can buy, go ahead and buy, because it's best to be on the right side of the playing field versus what we are continuing to see, which is them moving the goalpost. That is what happens when you're not playing, when you're not on the right side of the field. That goalpost is going to continue to be moved. And we don't want that. We want you to own your own home. If you desire to, we want you to own your own home without corporations being your biggest competition. So I hope that helped. And if it did, why don't you go ahead and like this video. Also share it. This is a growing issue, a growing concern for people. And it's definitely not going away for a while. But luckily for you, if you join us, we can tell you how to navigate it and help you build game plans so that you can become a homeowner. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.